Hi, welcome to Coffee with the Dean here in the second week of Lent. I'm Heather Vacek, the Dean of Faculty here at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and I'm here this week with Tracy Riggle Young, who's the Director of Enrollment and Retention. Tracy, it's great to have this chance to sit and chat for a little while.
Thank you for having me.
You mentioned that you have done work in thinking about social ethics, and you've studied social ethics and theological ethics at a master's level, at a doctoral level. Thinking about Lent and social ethics, how might Lent enable the church to consider its responsibilities?
I think this is a great question. So I think traditionally folks think about Lent in a very individualistic way. What am I going to give up? What am I going to commit to? And I think that for many folks, these can be meaningful questions, and having 40 days to really commit to something is very valuable. But I actually think that the church calls us to something more collective, more communal. And I've seen this with my own church, which is Bower Hill Community Church, of how we are intentionally, collaboratively as a faith community thinking about what we as a church can do to be more mindful about our actions and living in ways that are true to God's will in the world. So 2 small things that we are doing communally during Lent is to think about sustainability and how our own practices are affirming the world as God's body. So something small is we're giving up all of our paper and plastic products at coffee hour and using reusable mugs and composting. And this is something really small, but it's something that we're doing collectively so that we are engaging in this practice as a community for 40 days. And I think that that's been really valuable so that it's not something that we're doing in isolation, but we are reflecting on together. Something else that we've done for more than the 40-day period, but that we're reflecting upon intentionally is how to be present to our neighbors. And we've joined worship with First Baptist Church of Bower Hill Road, which was displaced during the floods over the summer in Bridgeville, and welcome them to worship and let them use some of our space and learn from them and prayed with them. And I think the commitment to Lent and calling us to that collective work has been a real gift, and it's something that I'm reflecting on and challenging myself to think about how I can have a Lenten practice that forces me to be more fully connected to community collectively.
Nice. Thank you for that invitation to think about church responsibility and Lenten practice together as individual and collective. In last week's conversation, we talked a little bit about God's call to the community, and so that's a really nice way to think about that call having communal practice, which of course happens in worship throughout Lent, but happens, as you're saying, in other ways. So that's lovely. So you have a passion for learning, a passion for education, that's quite clear. What resources do you turn to that feed that hunger for learning?
So as somebody who spent 7+ years in seminary, it was for a long time reading theology, digging deep into academic texts. But I have to admit, as a young mom who just had a baby, right now I am feeding my love of learning with reading fiction. And reading some lighter texts, which I did throughout my time at seminary because I thought that it helped make me a writer that folks would actually want to read. But since stepping away from my studies, it's something I've continued to do because learning through good fiction is just as valuable as learning through academic theology. And to me, reading a good book is a great way to get my mind thinking and exploring, and it's been a gift to me to be able to dig into fiction after having spent so many years with just academic texts.
Nice. Makes me want to go home and sit in a chair and read a novel.
Yes.
But also to relay that fiction, it can also integrate the seminary classroom. It does here. As you probably know, there are faculty who assign novels as ways to dig into theology and the human experience. I use sometimes, for example, James Baldwin's Go Tell It on the Mountain as a way to give students a window into Pentecostalism and into American religion in the early 20th century.
One of my favorite advisors in seminary said, Tracy, you want to be a good writer, you need to read more fiction. And Baldwin was top of his list and who I should read. And I've really tried to keep with that practice because the themes are there, and they're often there in a more palatable way, especially for someone that feels like at the end of a workday I might not have the bandwidth left to dig into something really philosophical or highly academic. So yeah.
Nice. So thinking about Lent, Holy Week, is there a particular practice that has been meaningful to you over time?
So this is a great question. I have to admit that I'm actually not really good at Lenten practice. I struggle with it mostly because of where I'm at in my life right now. I have 2 small children. I am also a working mom and a commuting mom and running from place to place. So it sometimes feels like if I have gotten all of the required things done, that I'm being successful. And so what that means for me is that there's not often a lot left in terms of my own time to be spiritually reflective. But actually in conversation with one of our students, I was directed towards a resource of how to be more thoughtful about how to integrate Lenten practice into one's family structure. And what that means for us is my daughter was given from the Godly Play curriculum at our church, this connection of paper chains for each day of Lent, which is up in our house and is a reminder to me as I'm moving through my day, my busy day, that this is where we're at. And what I'm hoping to commit to for this Lent in partnership with my husband is being more intentionally present in the moments that I do have with my family to talk about our values and what it is that we are called to do. So we eat dinner as a family Monday through Thursday. It's a commitment of ours. We are always there present at the table. So I want to be more conscious about being reflective with my daughter about why we value being a good neighbor. What does it look like to be a good neighbor? How is Jesus a good neighbor, inclusive of those who have less than us? And being present and inserting those questions into our dinner conversation, I think is a great way to be mindful of what Lent calls us to do. And again, this is something that I'm doing as an individual, but it's something that my family is collectively doing. And I think it's helping to teach my daughter, which is really important. And honestly, when I am present for her and her questions about why we do what we do or who God is or how to be part of God's body, I find that those moments are remarkably gratifying, but I need to take the time to be intentional about it with her. So that's what I'm hoping to do for this Lent, but I will report back on how it goes. And yeah.
Given that Lenten practice is about shaping an awareness of God's presence with us and the story of our tradition, that's a nice way to think about making that present. And that has shaped my own thinking about Lenten practices over the past few years, about not as there are times at which a giving up of something makes that awareness come to light, and there are times where doing something that is caring for self or caring for other creates that kind of presence. So I think there's wisdom there in thinking about what in a particular season, particular moment of life makes sense in terms of a practice that opens our ability to be present. One of the texts that's assigned for this week in Lent is Psalm 27, and that psalm ends with the words, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage." Wait for the Lord. For you, what does it mean to wait during this season of Lent?
I am a doer. I am not a very patient person. So when I hear the text, I cling to the be strong and have courage, which to me says that waiting is not something passive. Waiting is very much something active. So in this period of 40 days, as we prepare for Easter, that waiting is always active. So challenging myself to think about what I can be doing now and what I can be mindful of committing my time to courageously is something that I really find from the text. And this is very much what I see in my practice with my family. How do we make the most of this 40 days to dig more fully in what we're called to do as part of preparing for what lies ahead. So yeah, I would urge folks to think about in their context, how do we have to be courageous in our waiting? What does it call us to do in the here and the now as we look towards what is to come?
Mm-hmm. Well, Tracy Riggle Young, thank you for being here for Coffee with the Dean here in the second week of Lent, and thanks to everyone for watching. Please join us again next week when Professor Drew Smith, who teaches urban ministry here at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, will be here to join us. Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.